Hello and welcome to another standard video here in the preview event for Aetherdrift, so thanks again to Wizards for having me. Today we're taking a look at a blue-black artifact deck featuring 4 copies of a Repurposing Bay, which is kind of like a birthing pod for artifacts. Can pay 2 mana, tap it, and sacrifice another artifact to search your library for an artifact that's exactly 1 more mana and put it straight onto the battlefield. So we can start repurposing some of our removal spells, such as the new Grim Bauble, which gives a creature -2/-2 when it enters. And then we can repurpose it, find a 2 mana artifact, such as maybe our Tithing Blade, making the opponent sacrifice a creature of their choice when it enters. And then once again we can sacrifice our Tithing Blade later to get a 3 mana artifact, such as our Simulacrum Synthesizer, which is often the win condition in these artifact decks, letting us scry 2 when it enters. And then whenever another artifact we control with mana value 3 or greater enters, we get to make one of those construct tokens that gets larger the more artifacts we control. And then eventually the more synthesizers we can get in play, the bigger and bigger those construct tokens will become, and then we can very quickly close out the game. So that's why we're not playing a ton of one-offs in this deck, which you might usually see in a birthing pod style deck, where you have a lot of flexibility with your Repurposing Bay to get all sorts of one-off answers, but instead we're just kind of focusing on getting as many of these in play as possible, but that's certainly another direction you could take the deck in. So we've already showcased some of our removal spells, which may not be at their best in the current event that I'm playing in, but once we move back into the regular best of one ladder, where you're going to face lots of mono red and red-white aura decks, I think Tithing Blade especially good against aura decks, Grim Bauble also quite good against cards like the Heartfire Hero, so it doesn't deal damage on the way out, so you do have some pretty nifty answers that you can still sacrifice later for value. And then at 4 mana there's another newcomer. Oil Deep Gearhulk is a 4/4 with a lifelink and ward 1, and when it enters we can look at target player's hand, choose a card from it. If we do, that player discards that card and then draws a card, so it is optional, we don't have to make them discard. Can also target ourselves if we have dead cards in hand that we want to get rid of, so it is quite flexible, but it's not really quite as back-breaking as just taking away a card for good. But still a 4/4 lifelink also quite welcome when facing more aggressive decks. So as you can see, the blue-black build is definitely more tailor-made to beat aggro, as opposed to some of the other color combinations you could play, like blue-white or maybe even blue-red, where you get a battalion. And then rounding out the deck, we still have the Enigma Jewel, which I recently played in another artifact build, quite useful at activating some of our 2 mana artifacts, such as Collector's Vault to make a treasure, draw and discard, as well as a Mazemind Tome to just draw cards. And then later, of course, we can also activate our Repurposing Bay without needing additional mana, so we can on turn 3 already maybe sacrifice a 2-drop and then go get a 3 mana artifact. And the Pit Automaton also helps with that. An 0/4 also helps against cards like Screaming Nemesis, where we can block it without dealing damage to it, but can also tap it for 2 colorless mana that we can spend on activated abilities, such as our 2 mana artifacts and the Repurposing Bay once again. Can even craft our Tithing Blade if we really want to, or maybe sacrifice a Grim Bauble to surveil if we don't have our Repurposing Bay. And then we're also playing 2 copies of Braided Net, which can tap opposing non-land permanents down and can also be crafted into the Kipu, which can also be activated to draw more cards. And then once again the extra mana from our Automaton and Enigma Jewel will come in handy. And then if we're playing in a particularly grindy game, we can also activate our Enigma Jewel to craft it into the Locus of Enlightenment, which will then double all our activated abilities, so we get to draw 2 cards of all Collector's Vaults and Mazemind Tomes, while also getting to tap 2 things down with Braided Net, so that can also get out of hand pretty quickly. And then taking a look at the mana base, no real newcomers here, since we already had the blue-black Verge, and I'm not playing any utility lands that only produce colorless mana, since we do have the double blue, double black Gearhulk, so if we want to reliably cast it on turn 4, we can't really afford to play any colorless lands. Otherwise, a card like Fomori Vault could be quite useful, could maybe get away with a Mirex or 2, but it just doesn't seem worth it. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw. We are missing a way to generate mana for activated abilities, so this might be a little slow, but we've got a Bauble for interaction, so I'll try. Ooh, nice. Our Automaton could play Bauble just to have it in play for our Bay, but I'll wait. And Momentum Breaker, so I have to discard a card, so I guess Bauble can go now. even though it's possible I don't need a second bay, but it still triggers Synthesizer at least. So, play Automaton. May not survive, but I kind of like playing Synthesizer before activating the bay, since there would be 2 Synthesizer triggers. They might have double bobble, nowhere to run instead to finish it off. Alright. So we'll stick to the plan. Next turn we can Gear Hulk. And then Grim Bobble if our opponent's playing some sort of Pixie deck. This could answer a 2/2 flyer, although do we really care? And does give me something to upgrade into a 2-mana artifact with a bay, so maybe it's good enough. Opponent does have the Viper, so yeah, that's kind of scary here. It's gonna deal a lot of damage to me. So if I play Gear Hulk, it's not really stopping the Viper. The plan would be Bay, and then next turn we can make them sack a creature. Unless they have another creature in place, I should probably wait on Bobble to take care of something smaller. Or we could have a look with the Gear Hulk first, just to make sure nothing goes wrong. Interesting spot for sure. I think I play Bay and just keep it at that. And then if our opponent plays a smaller creature, we can bobble it, and then still get our Edict effect for the Viper. But yeah, that's a lot of damage, so if I take it all, I would die to their 1-mana discard enchantment. So I'm probably gonna end up jumping. Yeah. And a Bloodghast, alright. Hopefully that's their only creature. So, can finish off Bloodghast. And then answer the Viper. With a Tithing Blade. Alright, so that was a pretty clean solution. Bloodghast does have haste, so it will come back. If they had maybe played Fabled Passage, they would have been able to maybe get the Bloodghast back in response to the Tithing Blade. Braided Net isn't bad. So what are we looking at? Can just play the Gear Hulk. It's maybe the safest play. Or I can repurpose Tithing Blade to get a 3-drop, which also triggers Synthesizer. But it's not like I have something else to do with my mana. So I'll play Gear Hulk. Could also target myself if I want to discard something, but we'll still check out their hand first. And then another Viper seems scary enough. So now we've got a lifelinker to maybe stabilize us. Bloodghast attacks. So I guess they want to finish off my 4/4 with a bobble, or they drew a nowhere to run. Yeah, that's fine, we'll make them do it. Bloodghast is back. And bobble just for the Surveil, perhaps. So your opponent goes digging. But it feels like we're turning the corner now. And there's a Pixie going to the graveyard, not good enough. Land enters tapped, so probably just playing another Gear Hulk here. And grow our artifact before we attack. And don't hate targeting myself, actually. Although, can also, let's see, you may choose a card, so we don't have to make them discard if it's nothing scary. Because playing a land would still enable 3-drop plus Activate Bay next turn, which would be a fine play. So we can decline, and then attack. Gain 4 up to 10, and then next turn we should be able to close out the game. Braided Net can also answer another Viper, so I'm not too concerned. It's going to be a Scavenger instead. Alright. I'll gain my 4 life, I guess. And then we can just attack for the win. Otherwise, my play could have been Braided Net, tap down Scavenger, Bay, maybe first sacking the blade to get another synth, so that also triggers twice when we play Braided Net, so yeah, plenty more tokens coming our way. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with Keeper. Bobble into Automaton. Waiting to find something that synergizes with that extra mana. Maze Mind Tome will do. And we can answer the Forsaken Miner. So black-white, Sarcophagus. Can block that initially. But our opponent's on 1 speed already. So we'll see if they can keep attacking. Raceway, another payoff, eventually making 2 mana. And it's going to be an Ascendant, making a 2/2 zombie. Alright, so next up, could go for Braided Nets, not hating Maze Mind Tome plus Sewers. And then I can still activate Tome end of turn, since there's nothing I really need to tap down right away. Enigma Jewel is a little bit redundant when we already have Automaton, so at this point we're looking for some of our 3-drops, or a Gear Hulk would be quite good. Our opponent will get to speed up this turn. Braided Net would not have stopped that from happening. And another Sarcophagus eventually turns into a 3/3. Also Zombie for any zombie synergies, and a Final Vengeance. We'll take out our 2-drop. Draw a land. We'll put an upkeep stop in case we need to scry. Which, yeah, I'm probably playing a Braided Net this turn, even though it's not particularly impactful. We might be able to find something better. Another Automaton. Makes me regret scrying instead of drawing, but I don't hate it. Since it can block one of their 2/2s. Tiny Bones could be pretty good. Speed up to 3. And then I'll just take my draw. Find a land. Okay, so Braided Nets. Can also consider crafting it just to have more card draw. But yeah, we'll pass. If Tiny Bones gets Enigma Jewel, it's not a disaster. So we're probably tapping their Sarcophagus. Opponent is now max speed. So when their creatures die, they get to drain me. And then Miner, I guess, also triggers. So that can come back. Perhaps a reason to tap down Tiny Bones after all. And our opponent plays Enigma Jewel. Alright, so we'll draw. And more Maze Mind Tomes coming up. Okay, I guess we'll just draw here. Gaining 4. And Synthesizer's what we were looking for. So can play it. Bottom, bottom. So if I craft, I also trigger Synthesizer. But we can only craft as a sorcery, so we'd have to do it now. Which also taps the Automaton. Might be better off just using Braided Net once more. Opponent goes to attackers. At this point, committing a crime is not quite as relevant. Could still sack the Bauble to surveil, actually. But don't want to do it before Tiny Bones resolves. And a Forsaken Miner. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff for us to deal with. So we gotta dig 4 ways to trigger Synthesizer. Gearhulk is a good way to do that. And then probably just playing another Braided Net. Don't need Automaton. I see double Death Baron that are unable to cast, missing double black, and then Gisa, which they're not too far from casting with the Raceway. Giving their team Death Touch is definitely a problem, since that means they can trade for a huge construct as well. So yeah, this is rough. I probably just decline and then hope they don't draw black mana. Although taking a Death Baron is an option, and then try and find an answer for the other one. If they play Gisa, they don't have an easy way to commit crimes. Unless, I guess, their creatures die. It's just each opponent it doesn't target. Yeah, maybe I do still take a Death Baron. And play another Braided Net to trigger Synthesizer. And then, yeah, we're not crafting Braided Net just yet. Opponent found black mana, but it's tapped. And Perilous Snare. They can pay the ward. And then that's also a way for them to put +1 counters on creatures each turn. Fair enough. But no attacks this turn, I imagine. Time down Tiny Bones. And then I'm probably transforming the Braided Net here. Opponent's gonna grow a Miner. Another Gearhulk is useful, can take a second Death Baron now. Alright, so play it. This is 2 mana to craft. So can still play Maze Mind Tome and then activate Automaton. Let's just start here. Yeah, giving their team +1/+1 and Menace isn't bad either, to be fair. But we can block those more easily. And then make 2 mana, transform Braided Nets. Play Tome. This is 4 mana to activate, so yeah. Alright, we've got some beefy creatures, but I don't think we're in a position to attack, really. Since our opponent could just chump 1, take the rest, and then possibly attack back for lethal. But we might be able to set up a lethal attack next turn. So there's Gisa. Keep tapping down Tiny Bones. And then we're probably scrying with the Tome end of turn. Our opponent's just going for it since they realize that they're not winning the late game. So they do have Menace. So let's say we double block, has me taking 7, 8, 9, but I gain 4, so we're not dead to the triggers here. And we don't lose the Gearhulk. Seems okay. And then end of turn we'll scry. Another Synthesizer's fine. So we can play it just to grow our Synthesizers some more. But yeah, an all-out attack will do it. Can also tap down Gisa and pay the ward. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a decent hand. Got a nice curve out 1, 2, 3, 4. Although on the play, Bobble is not going to do much. Siren could be a fine target for it, so we keep Tithing Blade for something bigger. Against the blue deck, making sure this resolves is important. Opponent's blue-red. And a Schooner, so a pirate deck. Vehicles are sometimes difficult for us to deal with. Tithing Blade doesn't get to it, for instance. But I'll keep Bay, and then next turn likely play Gearhulk, so then having an extra land to activate Bay seems good enough. So we can check out if the coast is clear. And then we've got lots of cheap things we can upgrade with our Repurposing Bay to get more synthesizers going. So I don't hate my spot. Instead of playing Gearhulk, we could also just remove 2 of the opponent's creatures. But Gearhulk will be a decent roadblock for now. While triggering synthesizers, so that seems worthwhile. And then a flyer that slowly grows versus a creature that finds another creature. Yeah, probably take that one. And our opponent had left Siren on top. 1 unknown. And this one will enter tapped at the moment. I guess if they attack in the air, this will enter untapped now. Opponent's hoping to get a +1 counter, although we can double block Schooner. Only get punished if they have a bounce spell for my token. And a Lifecraft engine on top. Can name pirates, so that's also quite synergistic. Yeah, the fact that our opponents attacked with a mana up makes me a little concerned. So I don't think we double block. Since that would be a blowout, losing both creatures without removing the Schooner. Alright, so we are under some pressure, there's lots of flyers. So it might be okay to wait on the Repurposing Bay. Right now I guess we would get another Tithing Blade. Could also, I suppose, sack a Construct to get another Bauble. But, yeah, if we go Repurposing Bay, I guess I don't have to activate it. But it seems good enough, as opposed to playing Blade from hand. If I play both of these... Yeah, we're still facing the flyers, but we can gain 4 as well. So yeah, let's repurpose. That's what we're here for. And then next turn I can sack Blade to get another 3-drop. Maybe Braided Net to tap down their flyers. If they do still have a bounce spell left, I'll keep both artifacts back. And just send in the Gearhulk. Even though we could put them under a little bit more pressure. Just gotta make sure we survive this upcoming turn. And then we should be able to take over. Can play Bauble, take out a flyer. I guess now with the engine that's a little different. So I'll have to rely more on Tithing Blade. There's another engine on top. And all-out attack is probably not to move, because now they're just dead on the way back. But I guess our opponent was maybe getting a little desperate. So we can Tithing Blade upgrade it. Or play Bauble and get a third Tithing Blade for what it's worth. So we have some options. This one doesn't matter. And attack. Alright, so still a close one here against Blue-Red Pirates. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a fine hand. Turn 1 Jewel, enabling Vaults. Facing Blue-White. Is it Artifacts? Is it Control? We're about to find out. For now, another Archive. That's all we've seen. And a Synthesizer. So maybe looking for a third land, and it is an Artifact deck. I think I will prioritize Vaults, just so we can maybe play turn 3 Gearhulk to snipe another Synthesizer. Alright, it looks like it's coming down. That's too bad. So opponent's got the Synthesizer advantage, which is a big deal in this matchup. One Automaton can maybe go, still small chance Bauble can snipe a smaller artifact, but kind of doubt it. Just need to find our own Synthesizer and Repurposing Bay. Well, there it is. Could still try and Gearhulk first, but if I play Synth, we get to trigger it next turn. Although there's a chance there's removal for my Synthesizer as well. Alright, Repurposing Bay seems good. Keep that on top. And I could draw into it, but it doesn't make a difference right now. Unless I want to play Automaton. Which I guess isn't a bad idea. And then Bauble can probably go. Even though there's a way for me to eventually tutor up a 2-drop with a Repurposing Bay. I think we're just hoping to get as many Synthesizers in play as possible. And yeah, that's currently what's happening. It's the battle of the Synthesizers. So I can get a second copy in play right now. Play this, activate, can still activate Vaults. So yeah, let's scry first, I guess. Keep the Collector's Vault around for a bit longer. Even though if I sack Automaton we lose out on maybe the mana to activate both Bay and Vault, but I think we'll be alright. And get another Synth. And then Gearhulk's not bad. Although it is kind of expensive to play. We're not going up the chain up to 5 mana. So I don't think I need a second. And Tithing Blade, I guess, is decent. Might be better than Tome at this point. Since I can play it and then Bay to get another Synthesizer. Alright, Snare sadly will answer one of ours. And Sheltered by Ghost gets rid of another, ouch. Okay, at least they still cannot really attack. And yeah, we don't have much targeted removal to get rid of that one specifically. So, not what I was hoping for. So we gotta repurpose... I mean, I could repurpose a Tithing Blade and get another Synthesizer here. Or we could Gearhulk, but the damage kind of has been done. Yeah, let's just Tithing Blade. And get another Synthesizer. And bottom. Can either draw with Vault or play Tome. Probably not in a position to attack. I'll play Tome. And then I might scry. Another snare, ouch. Yeah, so now we're down to one synthesizer in library. I'm actually going for the token to maybe set up an attack. Maybe there's just another removal spell to win the game here. Nope. Guardian. Still pretty good. So now we're forced to chump. And yeah, there's no way to recover from this position. So, anything I can hope for? I don't think so. Let's just, I guess we may as well scry. Another Enigma Jewel. And yeah, Gearhulk can trigger Synthesizer once. First we can sack Vault to get another Synthesizer. Do we even have one left at this point? I've lost track, so there's one exiled here, one exiled here, so yeah, we should have one left. But that's not going to be able to keep up. Play Gearhulk. Can target myself at this point. And yeah, that should be game. Alright, GG's. So we ended up putting all 4 synthesizers in play. But yeah, the Perilous Snare being a very versatile answer in this matchup. Got the upper hand. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We start out with Enigma Jewel, no black mana for Bauble, but we can address that with treasures from Collector's Vault. So sign me up. Opponent's red-white, Gearhulk. We might be able to ramp into with a Collector's Vault as well here. And Arabella doesn't die to the Bauble, so possible we get rid of it. Definitely keep the land. Maze Mind Tome could also be superfluous since we have Collector's Vault, even though it's not actual card advantage. Yeah, close call here between Bauble and Tome. I'll keep Bauble. Seem to be up against a more aggressive deck. And then we can Vault, but I'm likely just playing Synthesizer first. Just so we can trigger it with Gearhulk next turn. And then the Bay seems good. They are playing blue as well. Could be more of a tokens deck. I see, Sheltered by Ghosts, okay. One play we do have available is to sack Grim Bauble to Bay to get our Edict to answer Arabella. Feels a little bit wasted, but I don't hate it. Could also just play Gearhulk, which currently outraces Arabella, and take it from there. Can also use the Bay to sack a treasure and get a 1-drop and then go up the curve that way. Just want to see what they're working with. Alright, so we have lots of auras plus a way to protect. The Guide Light grows with number of artifacts. So it's an affinity deck with not a lot of artifacts in play, basically. I don't think we need to take anything, since we could answer their stuff with edicts, although I guess if they play Guidelight, then our edict doesn't get Arabella specifically. So I could take their cheap artifact, which makes their affinity cards worse, and hope they didn't draw another one. And then we can maybe wait on Collector's Vault, or we could use it now to just play the Bay, which is also reasonable, but can just wait on using my treasures until next turn. There's no real drawback. And get a bit more info on their turn. So this costs 4 mana at the moment. Opponent doesn't have a good attack. We'll get our free treasure. Automaton wouldn't be bad either, but I'll stick to the plan, because it would be a 2-drop we can sacrifice, but we'll just keep going up the curve here. Sack Bauble to get Tithing Blade, so I'll try and resolve this first in case they have some counterspell. Could also activate Vault, although I can use a mana to activate Bay, so I don't waste my treasures. So we're not going to pay the ward. Instead, sacrifice my 1-mana artifact to get a 2-mana artifact, and hope they can't flash in a creature in response. That worked. Get our synthesizer back. Look for more 3-drops at this point, although 2-drops would technically be fine, since we can just sack them to the Bay. And I can hang on to the Tome. Can probably sack the Vault at this point and keep drawing with Tome instead. Another Bay might be overkill, but it is a way to trigger Synth. So, let's say we first sacrifice Vault to the Bay activation. Or I guess I can start with Tithing Blade if we're not going to craft it. Get another synthesizer. And then we can still play another Bay. And then I'm gonna do this now. Sacrifice Vault to get a 3rd synthesizer. And then maybe next turn we'll sack a 3-drop to get another Gearhulk. Sure. If they play another creature that they try and protect with Hexproof, I can also sack Treasure into 1-drop and then 1-drop into another Tithing Blade. But our opponent seems to be in trouble. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand, I think. Automaton, a way to activate our Maze Mind Tome. Got our win condition. Might need to find some interaction. Opponent's blue-green, and Enigma Jewel's not bad either. I think we still go with the Automaton, and then next turn I might go Tome plus Enigma Jewel, and then we can immediately draw if we still control the Automaton. And wait a turn on playing Synth. Alright, there's a red mana too. Could be a more controlling deck. So, yeah, we'll stick to the plan. Could draw now, I guess. There's no real drawback. Don't expect any haste creatures that I need to block. But if they flash in a Tidebinder or have some other effect, I might regret it. Alright, the Refueler, so it's an exhaust deck. Fair enough. So, we're looking at drawing a card with Enigma Jewel. Could scry first. Yeah, I guess that's fine. And I'll keep another one on top. Can draw into it. And then that's it for now. Ill-timed explosion makes sense. Better Punch is gonna draw 2 with it. Alright, Tithing Blade answers the Refueler. One card that could be backbreaking is a Brotherhood's End if her opponent's playing it. Gotta hope they don't. And then keep drawing and playing another Synthesizer. Can scry first. Don't need either of those. Alright, and then no need for Bauble either. So we'll just pass. We've got removal if smaller creatures show up. See the new blue-green Verge land as well. And then Inga and the Sika. So their creatures can make mana. And then Tithing Blade can answer one of their creatures. Can play another tome and draw with it using Automaton as well. So yeah, I guess I'll draw with the freshly played tome. And then we can attack. And then end of turn I'll draw with the other tome. Unless, I guess we haven't played a land for turn yet. Alright, I guess we did. Another explosion. Are we still just drawing 2? We are. Now Braided Nets will make 2 more tokens for us. I see Cauldron, so there's a combo happening here. Take 5 for now. And a Repurposing Bay could be used to check out the opponent's hand if we sack a 3-drop. Braided Nets could also shut down Cauldron, but yeah, I guess the ability still applies to what's currently exiled. So we have options. Could also play another Bay and upgrade Bauble into another Tithing Blade. Anyway, I can attack for lethal here. Yeah, I guess just playing Braided Net to tap this down makes 2 tokens. So that's a good starting point. So if I just Bay and then sack Blade to get another synth, and then Braided Net tap down their creature, we should get there. So yeah, once we're at this stage of the game, there's just so many options. Could have also drawn with Automaton and Maze Mind Tome, and then just cast another Tithing Blade. But this is a lethal attack. Alright, sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. We are counting on Automaton surviving and drawing a 3rd land, but that will help enable the Repurposing Bay, which can also trigger Synthesizer. Facing red-green. So we have options next turn. I probably want to play Synthesizer before I play Bay and activate it to get a 2nd copy, so we get more triggers out of it, even though it means not making use of the Automaton's mana. Opponent on Dinosaurs. Does Enigma Jewel change anything? Could play Vault, activate it, play Jewel. Yeah, that's not bad either. Sets up a lot of mana to activate the various bays. And 1 Jewel can go. Opponent's got a Hammer Skull, 6/6. So I do not have a 1-mana artifact to get Tithing Blade here, but I'm still liking Synthesizer into Repurposing Bay. Braided Net would be a fine draw as well. And then a land afterwards could be okay too. So I can activate Vaults. 1 Bay can go, and then I can still cast a Braided Net, or play Bay, and then sack Vault to get another 3-drop, which triggers Synthesizer the most. And then the question is what to get. I do have to decide now. Yeah, don't hate getting rid of Vaults. Opponent's gonna scoop it up. So let's have a look at the battlefield. So I could have sacrificed Enigma Jewel, get Tithing Blade, just answer Hammer Skull. Nice and easy. Could have also sacrificed one of our 2-drops to get either another Synthesizer or another Braided Net, probably leaning Synthesizer. And then our tokens are already bigger than the Hammer Skull, so we can sort of ignore it. And then next turn when we play Braided Net, we'll trigger those once again, maybe first getting a 3rd Synthesizer. So yeah, we're super far ahead here. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with Keeper. Turn to Automaton into either Tome Draw, or we can play Synthesizer first. Facing a red-white. And I'm not going to say no to another Synthesizer. Just got to be careful that we don't run into Brotherhood's End. That looks more like a vehicle deck. So don't really have any removal for it right now. Repurposing Bay is not bad either with Synthesizer if we have a 2-drop to sacrifice. So we're going to be on the back foot initially. Just gotta hope to eventually take over. Role Model pretty good too with vehicles, giving additional counters. Can soak up 2 damage at least. So for now, still gonna play a Synthesizer, even though that's the only play for now. And then Enigma Jewel. So what's my most likely sequence next turn? I've got 4 mana for just casting spells. Could play Bay, sack Automaton to get another 3-drop. Although I might be better off playing another Synthesizer from hand first, so then playing Enigma Jewel's not bad. This is a 4/2 that's immediately crewed. So yeah, we are taking some damage. Now we will get our first artifact token. Bobble seems like it's a little too late now that they've put a counter on it. Even though it's still a 1-drop, I could repurpose into a 2-drop. Definitely okay with a land. So I guess I can postpone my decision, since I might end up shuffling anyway. Alright, let's see if we can hold off on attack on the ground at least. Next turn Braided Net can lock down one of the flyers. Or we could just repurpose and get another 3-drop to trigger Synthesizer a bunch. Alright, just a Role Model attacking. Picks up another +1 counter. And we get to untap. So Bobble's not doing much, so we could shuffle it away with the Bay. And then Tome can draw, but first I want to shuffle. Make 2 mana. Upgrade it. Don't hate just getting another Braided Net, since we should have enough pressure on the board as is. And then Tome can still draw with Jewel. Alright, not bad. Can't afford to attack. And then we just gotta watch out for flyers. Opponent makes a token. So they could potentially give this flying as well. Opponent goes to attackers. We definitely know we want to tap down the role model. Does give itself an extra counter, so doesn't actually mind a braided net. And I guess we can play another one just to grow our tokens, but this should be lethal, unless our opponent's holding out on us. Playing Tithing Blade doesn't really do much besides, I guess, growing our creatures some more. But they should be lethal as is. Alright, and that'll do it. So we got to see our blue-black Repurposing Bay artifacts in action, and I definitely have some thoughts on the deck and the archetype in general, because there's a lot of ways to approach it. We could include lots more one-offs to maybe search up with our Repurposing Bay, although in practice it feels like we're just going for synthesizer more often than not. The upside of potentially going in white as opposed to black is that we would have access to a sweeper with a glyph bridge, so that could be quite valuable in certain situations. The snare at 3 mana, another new artifact that's also pretty good in the archetype as it triggers synthesizer, can answer opposing copies as we've seen, so there's definitely merit to playing white over black. The upside of maybe playing red instead is that you could include the battalion package to make lots of tokens with synthesizer as well, so that also has some upside. The main upside of playing black, which is why I picked it, is that I think it's going to be the best version in the best of 1 meta, which has a lot of red aggressive decks, because we actually have Bauble as a 1-mana answer that doesn't trigger cards like Heartfire Hero from dealing more damage. We have the Tithing Blade, which is very good against aura decks, which are still going to be popular, maybe even more popular than before, with the addition of the red-white Verge lands, making the mana base even better. So there are definitely some upsides to playing the black version. Having a 4/4 life-linking Gearhulk is also pretty good against aggro. So that's what you're kind of aiming for with a blue-black build, is beating up on the mono-red aggro decks of the format, and hopefully still having a chance in other matchups. But in a mirror match where you're facing the blue-white build, or maybe a blue-red build of the artifact deck, I think you're going to be at a disadvantage, since your removal spells aren't particularly useful, and a 4/4 life-linking Gearhulk, even if it can take away a card from the opponent's hand, isn't all that impactful, since the opponent can have already played their synthesizer beforehand. So in general, blue-black is just purely made for the best of 1 meta, but I think if you move to best of 3, you might be better off with blue-white or maybe some other color combinations. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.